members about what it is like to be a Presbyterian and how it shapes our everyday experiences and service to others. Our panelists today are Lori Conley, Marilyn Critchko, Nan Schaefer, and John Ugair. And thanks to all of you all for being here and sharing your experiences. So our first question is going to be, how did you become a Presbyterian? This is the only one I'm going to also answer. I was born into a Presbyterian church. My mother's family helped found a Presbyterian church in Kentucky. It was 3 Scottish brothers who immigrated from Scotland to the United States. So I went to the church in Versailles, Kentucky. It was founded in 1812. My mother's family referred to that as the New Church because the church that they had attended was founded in 1799 in Campbellsville, Kentucky. And so I was sort of born into the church. It was all I ever remember was being at the church. But so why don't we start with Marilyn, who's going to tell us how she became Presbyterian.
And Michael, I love that you were born into the church. I was not born into the church at all. So we went to a Lutheran church and also this weird Slovak Catholic church that my grandmother went to. So that's where I went when I was a child. And then a really bad thing happened. Our assistant pastor had an affair with someone's daughter in the church, and they ran off to Pittsburgh, from our farm town to Pittsburgh. And so my mom got this phone call, and she looked horrified. I heard her talking. I happened to be sitting at our kitchen table that day, and she was going, oh my God. And so my mom got off the phone, and she said, you're not going to youth group tonight. And I'd love to go to youth group because we did fun stuff there, right? And she said, but if you want to go to a youth group, the Presbyterian Church has a youth group. So you could see where this is going. And they played Foursquare, and they ate pizza. We didn't have Foursquare and pizza, and I thought our youth group was fun. So I went to the Presbyterian youth group, and that started my journey as a Presbyterian, where I started to learn, who are Presbyterians? What do they stand for? What are they like? And during my life, I have moved 20-some times. With my job, I was a tennis player. I worked for the government, then I worked for a Swedish company, lived all over the world. And when I moved, I looked for Presbyterian churches and didn't always have them. And that's why I'm one today, because I appreciate the Presbyterian church. We'll get to that later. So anyhow, here you go. John.
So I grew up in Mukwonago, Wisconsin. The 1950 census was about 800 and change. And we had 10 churches in the area. I grew up in the Congregational Church. It was the only Calvinist background church in the area. Well, unless you count the Unitarians that kind of fell off the rails somewhere, according to my parents. But it was a very comfortable thing. I was comfortable with the theology as a little kid. My best friends, my parents' best friends, all belonged to that church. We had a great youth group and so forth, and so that was beginning, and it made sense because that crazy name of mine, the one that scares people if they see the spelling before they have to pronounce it, is of Huguenot origin, so the French Calvinists. And a big story in our family was how we had been dispossessed of everything and had to flee for our lives and so forth. And my mom's family were German Reformed, so it just all fit together. So now I have to explain why I spent 20 years as a Lutheran. And the answer is love or lust. And it was a common story in my family. And it explains why I had an uncle who was a Lutheran pastor, and one of his daughters is a Lutheran pastor, and so forth. And the issue is, if you lived in Milwaukee, where the family settled as pioneers, pretty soon you were surrounded by Germans. And what did you do? You know, if a guy got to a certain age and thought he'd start a family and so forth, your choices were somewhat limited. And so quite a few of them, as part of enticing a young woman to join them, decide, well, it wouldn't be that bad to be a Lutheran. So there were Lutherans in the family. There was even a Catholic who fell in love with a Catholic, you know. It was just what you did. And so I was here at the University of Wisconsin for my undergraduate degree. I usually attended the big Congregational Church on Breeze Terrace while I was here. But one day, it was March May 7th, 1967. Had not had much sleep, but my fraternity was throwing a party in gratitude for a big fundraising effort for charity. And so I'm there. I'm just going to go briefly because it was an obligation. And a young woman walked up to me and said, "Don't I know you from somewhere?" And I thought, nobody uses that line. She must really know me. I better talk to her for a while before figure out where that was. And 55 years later, we're still married. and she was Lutheran. but she was Lutheran because her Welsh ancestors on part and her English Episcopalian, one of them married a Danish girl, and that was Lutheran, then she was Lutheran, and that's how it happened. So for 20 years as we moved around, we just belonged to Lutheran churches. We had moved quite a bit. But in the place in northern Indiana where we sat, we had a very earnest, very nice, and serious pastor who decided that maybe the Lutheran Church and Protestants in general had been incorrect in separating from the Roman Catholic Church. And about the time that he brought a censer and incense into the service, I just said, this is not the most comfortable thing for me in the whole world. I've gotten over, my family got over the anti-Catholic thing, and so forth, but I'm more comfortable with the different theologies. So we cast around, and some very good friends and so forth were part of the Presbyterian Church in town. It was a really cool congregation, so we decided to move and join that, and we've been Presbyterians ever since.
Hi, I'm Lori Conley. I am actually very new to being a Presbyterian. I grew up Catholic. But I never really felt like I had a close relationship with God as a Catholic. So then when I left for college, I remember going to the campus. I also went to UW-Madison to the campus church, the Catholic campus church, and I just felt like a fish out of water because everyone there just seemed just on fire for Jesus, and I was not one of those people, and I just didn't feel like I fit in there. So I was unchurched for a really long time. And thankfully, my mom's home pastor was willing to marry us in a Catholic church because I still wanted to be married in the church. I just had never really found my spot. In college, we tried non-denominational, my friends and I kind of explored some different things, but it wasn't until after we got married and kind of got settled that we had joined United Church of Christ. And that was a really good experience. But then we moved to Indiana, and there, I'm trying to remember even what church we went to, honestly. I think it might have been another United Church of Christ. But to me, I identify more as a Christian than a specific religion. So when we moved to Madison, we kind of church shopped. Maybe that's not something you should announce, but it's true. And we had found a home at a Methodist church, and we're super happy there for a long time, and then discovered that there were some things about their theology that we didn't really know because we hadn't grown up. Neither, my husband was UCC, grew up UCC, so neither of us really understood the Methodist foundation, and so we decided to leave there. I don't know, I think it was about 4 years ago, and then Steve Royalton welcomed she wasn't quite a teen, my tween daughter into the youth group, and she felt really welcome here. And so really, we kind of started coming partially because of that, because the youth group here was really something that she connected with. And then for me, I really like the growth mentality of the Presbyterian denomination. That's something that I, as a person, really honor and try to work on. So, adult education was awesome. Having some sort of Sunday education for adults was really important. And I really like that you reach out. It's not just taking care of each other, but we're trying to take care of other people outside of the church. So we've been members for about 2 years, and I'm enjoying it. So I will pass.
For the record, I think church shopping is both intellectually stimulating and kind of fun, and also extremely appropriate, because you find something that matches what's in your own heart and your own mind, I think.
Well, to be honest, essentially, we became Presbyterian out of convenience. We just live across the street. I was baptized in a Lutheran church, a dinky little town in Nebraska. Attended a couple of Presbyterian churches with family as we were moving around. Was confirmed in a congregational UCC in Eau Claire. Married a Catholic. And then we were actually married at St. Paul's down on State Street. But the priest who married us did a Protestant wedding in the Catholic Church. We did not have Mass. I had not taken any kind of Catholic instruction. And, well, we went to St. Paul's a few times, but somehow it just was easier to not go to church on Sunday morning. Until we had our first child. She was about 2.5, and second one out here on the way. And I just felt the need for a church home. It was time. So I came over here to church by myself one time. Just walked across the street, came to church. That's too easy. I didn't shop at all. But Bill King was a pastor, and I really enjoyed his sermon. Music was fun. Brought Bob and Christy, and we started going and joined the church when the middle one was pretty close to due. And that's how we just became Presbyterian. I had a history with it, but I wasn't ever old enough to get what that history meant, so that's me.
Jacqueline and I were married by the Lutherans because their church was conveniently located for our reception. So we were both Presbyterians, but we asked the Lutherans if they could take that on for us. So, Nan, how does being a Presbyterian influence or guide you in your everyday life?
Like someone else, I can't remember which one of you said it, but I kind of am less Presbyterian than try to be a follower of Jesus' teachings. I think almost any denomination can be, well, open and welcoming, or not. I think almost any congregation can be education-oriented, or not. Presbyterian, well, I'll talk about that later. But anyway, this church, the reason that it guides my life is this church is open and welcoming. This Presbyterian church is open and welcoming and stresses learning and stresses service. And all of those things are things that are important to me in my life. And so is that what I wrote? I wrote notes because I don't remember. Yeah, that's what keeps me moving forward in service to other people, and that's what this is all about.
And I was the one who said I identify more as a Christian than a Presbyterian.
Yeah.
Although I think the more I get to know what Presbyterians believe, I feel like it is a pretty good fit for me. But I think just I also take a lot of things I learned from other traditions and incorporate it into this is kind of the gospel of me. So I don't feel like I'm entirely just closed to what Jesus had to teach, but there's other teachings that are out there that I think are influential for me as well, although I still like I said, identify as a Christian. So I think the biggest thing that it guides me in my everyday life is just to be a kind person who sees other people as humans. We all make mistakes. We all have bad days. And, you know, when I see somebody having a bad day and sometimes directing things at me, I try to go, that's really probably not about me. 99% of the time it's not. And I say a little prayer, like, I hope that person's day gets better. And sometimes it's not just their day, but it might be, you know, what they're dealing with on a daily basis, and they're not able to get through past that. So I think just trying to recognize that we all have struggles, and that as much as some people try to look put together, it's not entirely true. And, you know, and give people space to, like, be their authentic self, because that's really what God wants for us, is to be the best us that we can be. Because when we all work together and we all bring our gifts, it's beautiful, and I've seen it happen. So I think that's what guides me in my everyday life.
I think if we pay attention, because sometimes we don't, every day there are decisions that we have to make just to carry on our lives that have a moral aspect to them. You know, what is the right thing to do? You know, and some of them are tough. You know, what if you can do something that protects a bunch of people or helps a bunch of people, but it's not so good for some other people? You know, what is the moral aspect of trying to do this or do that? And what I prize about my Presbyterian faith, and Covenant in particular, is this is a place where we can safely talk about what are the moral implications of those different things. Sometimes it's hard to get to a perfect answer, but it's good to be in a place where, whether it's the sermons or Christian ed or participating in certain activities, you can explore those things. And in particular, being prepared to deal with lots of people that are coming from a different place, okay? I prize my relationship with my Muslim business partner, who is a sincere man. He prays for me, which I need. And I prize that because he is a man of faith, and I have similar relationships with friends or business associates who are Jewish or Hindu or whatever. I think it's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of this in a totally white European community that I grew up in, that someday my religion would help prepare me to deal with a very diverse population and find a moral path.
Wow, these are really hard acts to follow, I gotta tell you. You know, there's that song, "You Will Know They Are Christians by Their Love." And when I really decided to be a Presbyterian, which I didn't say when I was talking about why are you a Presbyterian, one thing that I loved was the governance in the church. I think we have that. I've been at other churches. I have attended free churches living around the world. I have attended non-denominational churches. I have attended all kinds of churches that did not have the governance that we have. And I think that governance is there for a reason. I love the structure of our church, that we have elders, right? And that Charlie doesn't have a bigger vote than the rest of us when we're voting on things, right? That the congregation gets to vote. I love that about us. But the thing I love the most, and the thing that influences my life, is the love. It's all of you. It's the love. I could look around this room and see person after person who influences me in my life, right? I can see these people, and that, to me, challenges me. So the Presbyterian Church challenges me to be a better Christian, to be an actual disciple. I wouldn't be in this Old Testament class at Dubuque Seminary if it weren't for the person who actually donated money to help pay for our class. How loving is that? When that happened, I wasn't going to do it. I took one class. It was stressful. You know, my wife, Ann, was diagnosed with a very rare cancer that they don't have a cure for. We just got a good report that she's cleared. So that's really fantastic. I can't hardly believe it, right? But during that, I was taking a class. And it was really stressful to do all the work for a master's degree class, to go to work every day, to take care of Anne, and do all the things that I've committed to in my life. So then I thought in the fall, I'm not going to take that class. I'm not going to take another class. I can't do one more thing. And I kept praying about it, and then I said, well, and it's $2,000. Like, I don't really want to pay $2,000 to take a class. And then this person donated a big part of our fees. And I knew God was saying, fine, if that's the thing that's going to stop you, I'm just going to put it right out there. So I couldn't say no. I thought, I need to do this now, because the one that I said, this is like the final straw. Because of this, I'm not going to do it. And it's funny, I do that sometimes. I shouldn't test God, and I shouldn't test what I'm supposed to do, but I'm human, and I do that. I'll say, if this happens then, or if that happens, then I'll do this. And I keep finding that out in little ways every day. I'll decide, I'm going to go this way. I'm going over there. And I'll say, but God, if this happens, then I won't do that. That thing always happens then. And I'm like, why do I even do that? I just need to listen. But it's really, at the end of the day, I am influenced by all of you because of all the loving and kind and things you do. It causes me to do things that I should do, that I would otherwise not do. Because I'm human too, right? Yeah.
So if each of you could share some of the roles that you've had at Covenant, different, either serving on a committee, serving as part of a group that went on a mission trip, and just did that experience as a part of the church in a specific role, how that played out, how has it influenced your view of the church or your everyday life?
Yep, so I love the Book of Order, right? I love reading it, and I was praying one day, God, use me more. And then my wonderful friend over here, Nick's mom, I refer to all the Von Bergens in one big group. The mom, the brother, the son-in-law, brother-in-law, yeah. So it was really funny. I got a phone call one day about being an elder, right? And so now I'm an elder. And I was just praying to God, like, God, please use me more. By the way, I worked in a church in Sweden when I was younger. And I ran away from my calling. I'm just going to admit it now. I totally ran away from my calling, got my MBA, went into business, and just thought, I'm not going to work for a church. And so I got this calling to be an elder, and I'm really happy about that. I have served on the Adult Education Committee. That's really exciting. If any of you haven't done it, it's really fun. And I am currently on Gifts, Memorials, and Bequests. And the one that goes with that, I don't know what to call it, something giving. The one legacy giving. Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah. So that's how I serve. And then I also I have preached in the church, that was really exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time. And I started helping with the kids that are going through confirmation. So I taught a class last week. And I love that, so I reached back out to Megan to say that that's like the age group that I love, and I would like to do that some more. So that's what I'm currently doing. Yeah. Oh yeah. The best thing is our small group that keeps going and going and going. We're like the Energizer Bunny, right? We're just our small group that it feels like we're a little family. It's just the most awesome thing, and in our small group, I don't want to go too much into it, but an ad for small groups, we can talk about anything. If we read what we're supposed to read, we do. If we don't, it's really okay. We're our authentic selves in our small group, and I really appreciate my small group. Led by Nick and Jenny. Von Bergen.
So, the one point of involvement that's just out of sheer joy and love is singing in the choir. I need to know that before joining the choir here, because after every service, or I think after the Christmas thing, when I was doing some narration, Melissa Hintz would come up to me and say, "You should join the choir, you should join the choir." And it was probably down there, 30th or 40th place on my bucket list. But I said to her, and I said to the choir when I joined and introduced myself, I said, the last time I sang in a choir was in 7th grade, and I was kicked out for bad behavior. And one of the other choir members turned around and said, "You'll fit right in." Which I did, but I'd say, so I'm an example. I read music, I had to take piano lessons and organ lessons, I played a musical instrument, so I could read music, but it just had never occurred to me to do that. But it's been a great joy and fun to form the kind of community that's kind of special in our music ministry here. I'd recommend it to anybody, even if you thought, even if you can't read music, you might get by, So, especially if you're a bass or tenor right now. But I've been, I enjoyed being a pen pal for Glenn Stevens. What a joy that has been to meet these kids, and how great that school is, and how involved the teachers and the kids are. And then I've had the great opportunity to be in a number of leadership roles. I should say that whenever I've said yes, and I have to be careful because there are a lot of other things that are important to me to be doing, it's usually out of, I have that duty. I'm sure some of you grew up in the same kind of family where you learn from an early age that whatever you've been given, it doesn't matter, it could be a lot, it could be a little, you have an obligation to serve, to lead where you have the ability to do it. And some of the things I was told I think are probably not true. But, I remember as a kid, my grandfather taking me aside, my grandfather Yaguer, and saying, "Don't pay any attention to all this stuff about working class or upper class or anything else. None of that applies to you. You're part of the nobility." It's just that we lost all that when we got kicked out of France. And he said, "But here's the point, you have to do what we did in those days. You have people you have to take care of. You have great obligations." And so I've always remembered that. I've told the kids about that. They don't believe it. They probably shouldn't. My parents would have been horrified that my grandfather said that to me, because they preferred to show leadership by example. They were in charge of every conceivable thing, other than Knights of Columbus, of course, in the town, and so that stuck with me. And I remember 4th grade, Mrs. Sellers had to start the civics process where we had to learn what democracy was about. We were going to form a 4th grade student council and so forth. She called me up in front of and just said, "I just need to talk to you a minute. We're going to do this, and we're going to have an election for president, and you're going to be nominated by your other students, and you should accept." I said, "How do you know this?" "Because some people are born to do that, and you are, and they will just know that." And that happened. And so I had the great privilege. So these things, opportunities come up, and I feel obligated to do it. But the good news is that I'm on session for my 2nd time. I've been chair of GMB, chair currently of finance. I was chair of buildings and grounds for a while. It's afterwards when I get to be involved, as you said, Marilyn, with what we learned from all the other people that we're working with on those, and the opportunities that open up that maybe you didn't see. And it's a good thing, because I hate accounting, I hate finance, but it just bores me to tears. But I'm glad that I can do this for us. And I think, as you've heard recently in Gordon's presentation, we are so lucky here, we have complicated finances, but they're good.
I think we started, my husband and I, with some small group, I think it might have been a Bible study or two, like when we were still virtual. And actually that helped me start seeing faces and putting names to faces, which was great. And then, I I have been we've both been pen pal, and our older daughter has been a pen pal to the 5th graders, which has been really fun. So this year, I helped Frida Marie get that launched, just because she was looking for some help to get it started. And that fit really well with my gifts, because I like spreadsheets, and that's what she needed help with. So, and then this past summer, I went on the Guatemalan mission trip with the youth group, primarily because my daughter was like, I'm not going without you, and I would have been interested in going, but I don't speak Spanish, so I just felt like that a little hesitant. She does speak Spanish, so it's always a joy for me to get to see her use her Spanish, and that was evident there. But I also felt like I was meant to be there as well. Like, once we got there and we got to meet the people, and I loved learning so much about their history and their culture, and it just changed so much about my perspective on immigration. I honestly, sadly, did not know a lot, and had some one-on-one conversations with people who have been through some hard things. So it was really touched my heart, and I think has influenced what, things I would like to do going forward. One of them, I'm helping with the Guatemala auction this year. I like to dip my toes in a little bit and see, like, okay, where would I fit? Because I used to be more of a like jump in and like, okay, what can I lead? And now I'm kind of settling more into where can I add and make a contribution. I don't want to take over, but I want to hopefully add to the dynamic and have some increased synergy if possible. So with that, as of right now, I pretty much going to help with the auction piece and sorting and organizing things afterwards. That's right up my alley. And then we'll see how this year goes, and like, what is there something I can do to jump in to make that, to add to that. And I've also subbed a little bit with the youth group, which I would like to get a little bit more involved with that, but again, I'm like dipping my toes in. I'm like, can I really deal with a bunch of middle schoolers? I'm not really sure. I was like, maybe not. Sometimes I think this about teachers. I'm like, you shouldn't teach the age that you have. Like, if you have kids at home that are that age, teaching that age, probably not in your best interest. And so since I have kids in those age groups, I'm like, maybe I need to wait until they're done, and then I jump in with other people's kids. So I will pass.
In our 43 years here, I've had a lot of roles. Been an elder, been a deacon, been Sunday school teacher, been kaleidoscope teacher, and yada, yada, yada. Currently, I sing with the New Day Band, which I was always a classical musician, and Christian contemporary music was not my thing. But I decided to give it a try because we were starting early service, and that's when I liked to go to church. And it's been interesting because it's a whole new form of lyric. It's a simpler lyric. It's just a different way of worshiping, and it's come to mean a lot more to me, and I have really come to enjoy it. And I'm not sure I'm ready to go to a mega church where that's what they do totally, but it's really meant quite a lot. And I think there are people who come to that service because they like that kind of music, and that's rewarding for all of us who do it. I also do, and it sounds so trivial, but I'm part of the very small group that makes mercy mats. And these are, if you look in the coat room, all those mats up on the wall, that's recycled plastic shopping bags, which is good for our environment to get bunches of those out of the trash. And those are given to homeless people. They can use them as mats to sit on, as covers over their head in the rain or whatever, but it's a service to homeless. I help coordinate the meals for the Healing House, which is an organization that, it's a house, literally, down near Breeze Stevens. And it has people living there for up to a month, homeless families. And they either have had a new baby, or somebody in the family is in the hospital, having surgery or ill, and the family then can be close to the hospital. And we provide meals for a week, 4 times a year. Hopefully it will, never mind. There's a wrinkle in the transition from the road home to Healing House. But anyway, it's another service to homeless folks, which I feel like is a really, really desperately needed service. It's a Matthew 25 kind of thing. I do the Welcome Center like I did this morning on the one week a month that we don't sing for New Day bands. So that's fun to see all the faces coming in to shake hands. Back to shaking hands. Hi, good to see you. Anyway, so I do that. And then the small group, at least when I'm not singing with my chorus, I'm in a different small group because of, excuse me, the list goes on. I led the care team ministry for quite a few years, and I just can't give it up. I still visit some of the remaining people that I saw before care team ended. And that, it's painful, it's hard, but it is something that's so needed. So my service is reaching out.
I think the overarching story I would take away from all of your experiences is there's a lot of need for people within the church, but there's also really a lot of ways to participate. And they range from very small roles to very big roles, but that it can be a role that fits in with whatever you're able to give at the time.
And Dan bakes amazing bread.
So this next question, being a Presbyterian, how does it affect how you see the events in the world, and how does it drive what you participate in? Not participate in. I am going to share an answer about this one. Some of you know I'm a journalist. I work with international news. It is not always the most pleasant thing to cover. But so my Presbyterian lens helps me a lot in this way. Not everything has to have reason. And Charlie touched on that this morning, that there's not a reason for everything, because if I spent my time with the harshness and the human cruelty I have to deal with in the stories that I help edit, I would drive myself crazy trying to find how can this be part of God's plan. And what I've learned is it's not. That human cruelty is not God's plan, it's not God's choice, it's our choice, it's free will, it's something that we choose, and that I can't let myself get drug into trying to understand the meaning of things that have no meaning. And so I seek meaning, and I seek what can I do about something rather than why is this happening, because there's not always a why. And that has helped me. It has helped my mental and physical health as I have to confront stories that are cruel and harsh at times. And so I feel like it is helping to protect me in some ways to understand that. So that's a small way that it affects how I view particular world events. But Nan, can you share just how does your lens on events of the world or in our community, how does your Presbyterianism affect that?
Well, touching on the Presbyterian side of it, after reading What Kind of Christianity, the Presbyterian Church has a horrible history in regarding slavery. And after reading that book, it drives me even more beyond the 3 years that, oh yeah, that's another thing I do, the Racist Anonymous group that meets every week. I'm driven even more to become an anti-racist, because to try to negate some of the history of the Presbyterian Church. I can't remember what else I was going to say, but I think it's just, in the Presbyterian and our churches, Matthew 25. It's not how I relate to the rest of the world. that truly is very much a part of what I do. But yeah, I'm going to make like I would like to take back the name Christian from the Christian right and say I'm not ashamed to be a Christian. I want to be able to say I'm a Presbyterian without the stain of the Presbyterian history past.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think sometimes, even for my children, like when people hear they identify as a Christian, it's not always a nice reaction, which is hard because I want them to feel good about identifying that way. But I think in general, being a Christian and a Presbyterian, I choose to participate in things that build people up. And I don't want to be I'm struggling with my words here, but just if there's things going on that seem to be hurtful or just really, causing pain for people that we might not, sometimes I'm sure I've done it without even realizing it because, we only know what we know. Sometimes we don't know the words we're saying are hurtful to somebody else. And until somebody points that out to you, you don't know. But as much as I can, I try to participate in things that are more positive and uplifting and giving people hope than to choose things that are, going to cause pain or make people feel excluded in any way.
Charlie or the nominating committee called me up or some other things I'm involved in and say, hey, would you do this? Would you participate in this? And I've said no on occasion and said more recently since we did this as a church, I said, I've got my own Matthew 25 agenda that I'm called to do. It's just something that slowly developed in my 40s and 50s. I wish it had been earlier, but a recognition that all of us, we are born with some aptitudes, and then going through life we develop some skills and so forth, and not everybody may have those particular ones, and as a result, and I think this is true of quite a few people here in our congregation, have the ability to do some things that maybe nobody else in Madison or anywhere in the country can do. So where that has led me is to focus on a number of things. One is, I know a fair amount, I've learned a fair amount about how to build affordable houses and other buildings, how to design them and build them so that they are highly energy efficient, that they do not contribute to the carbon-containing gases and so forth that are creating a problem for us today. I've learned how to do certain things and how to put teams together. And because I always had a love for mathematics, I know a few other things. So these are things that I have found just incredibly rewarding to do, and they come from my faith and being a Presbyterian and being a member. But for years, I was running companies up until we moved here in 2013, and still by commuting until 2016, I was running companies that built structures that had these characteristics that, focused on things like replacing housing that was damaged in great things, or that were needed to provide affordable housing in certain places, or that needed to set new standards for energy efficiency and that whole area of sustainability. So now it kind of moved here. I told my wife, said, if we don't move, I'm going to continue to work 68 hours a week. And so now, try to keep it 40. But even at age 77. But, so I have a consulting firm in which I take great pleasure working. I'm working with a group in Oregon that is replacing the housing that was burned down with the wildfires. I'm working with a group in New York to kind of hit a next level of an big energy efficient building. Looks like I'll be working next year with a group in New Hampshire that is trying to provide in an area very short of affordable housing. I'm working on some things in a couple of committees in Madison to try to deal with our affordability crisis here. That mathematics side led me into dredging up things I learned here that we couldn't do because we didn't have powerful committees. I'm president of a company that we founded to take around the world new ways to diagnose ear diseases, which are a tremendous problem in terms of oversubscription of antibiotics that will allow us to provide accurate diagnoses in places where there are no doctors and just limited clinicians and things like that. I work as a volunteer for local mentoring organizations that are helping new companies with great, I limit myself to ones where I just, in my own mind, these are great ideas for helping humanity and conform to my idea of what we should be doing as Christians or just people of faith. Some of the people I work with are not Christians, but are wonderful people. And I'm particular interested where I have the opportunity, a couple of us in this organization that are particularly focused on the people of color that with tremendous courage come to present their ideas to us. Just by virtue of the age and where our society has been, imagine yourself a person of color who comes forward to stand in front of a bunch of old white guys, a couple of old white women, and say, I've got this idea, and by the way, I didn't graduate from high school. I had some problems, and I had to go through Job Corps, and I had to get my GED, but I think this is something that makes sense. And sometimes it does. But these are wonderful citizens of ours that have great ideas, and we have not run the society in a way that lets them actualize all of what they can do. And it's been a pleasure and an education to work on those kinds of opportunities. I've got a couple of those I'm working on right now. So all of this is just to say that, as I've told Charlie, I said, I'm here on Sunday because it gets me ready for what I need to do on Monday.
Only 40 hours a week?
Only 40 hours.
Yeah, only 40 hours a week. So, how has it affected events, how I see events in the world and drive things I choose to participate or not participate in? I'd say since I joined this church and became a Presbyterian, my life has been flipped upside down. Absolutely. Like what I used to do with my time, I don't do with my time today. We moved here from Seattle 7 years ago. And at first, we were just trying to get into our new jobs. I was traveling to Jamaica a lot because I worked for, Campari was one of my customers of the consulting firm that I owned. And so I was going to Jamaica. I would come home. I would play a lot of golf. I would go socialize with my elderly neighbor next door, Selma. We would have cocktails. I would go to book club, but I never read the book. I've worked out. I was looking for friends, didn't feel like I had any close friends. I was kind of bored, and I kept telling Ann, if you want to move back to Seattle, I could be ready in 2 days. And I would tell her that all the time. I'd be like, do you want to move yet? Like, could we go to Vancouver? Could we go somewhere? Let's move to Sweden. We could go to Norway. I had all these ideas about everywhere we could go but Madison. And then I found this church. And I started to get to know people through small groups, especially, right, through my small group. And I started to feel like there was more to my relationships than having cocktails and playing golf and talking about absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about world events. Sure, I read, I go on BBC every day, and I listen to PBS NewsHour, kinda, while I do the crossword. And I didn't know anything, and now I feel an obligation to pay attention to world news and what's going on around me because I feel like we can influence it. So that's how it really changed me. I felt like I couldn't do anything before. And I felt like someone else needed to lead, or I needed to hear what someone else I knew was doing. And now I feel like I need to pay attention because God is so much more powerful than we are. And if we pray and we ask God to use us, God will use us. That's the really scary thing, is to do it. You know, if you don't believe me, just do it. Say, God, please use me, and your life will change. The other thing that changed was at work. So I decided, my family asked me to stop going to Jamaica all the time because it's kind of dangerous. If you go there for a long time, then people know your schedule, and you kind of become a kidnap target. I don't know if they want me, but they do it to other people. So my family said, we don't really want you going there anymore. You've just gone too much. And so I said, okay, well, I'll get a local job. So I prayed about that, right? And then I did get a local job. So I run this global automation program for Spectrum Brands. And I thought, I'm just going to go to work, do my job, and come home, right? I don't have any big obligation except to get my work done. Well, being a Presbyterian, we know that that's just a big fat lie, right? That we're supposed to have, more of a calling in our lives. So now I pay a lot of attention to mentoring the people who report to me. I make sure I get an intern every summer. And then last year, I became the chairman of our RISE committee, which helps everyone connect at work. And I put a lot of governance in place, right? We're heavy on governance in our church, and I think it's for a really good reason. It's one thing I love about our church. So I put all this governance in place, so we motion for things, we all agree, we've asked the right people, we've done all of our homework, our due diligence. I put that in place, and I recently resigned from RISE. And that's because I felt like I was supposed to do something else. I was asked to be on the governance council at our company, or not the governance council, I'm sorry, the DEI council. So there's a small group of us that are running DEI at our company today. It's a new effort. I know you're smiling because you helped me with it, didn't you? Yeah, I reached out to my good friend and said, I need your help, right? And I got the help that I needed, which is really great. And so now we have this council. As part of that, this is where the challenge came. This is where being a Presbyterian is really important. So then I got a phone call one day saying, Marilyn, we need you to help us with one of the new groups that we're spinning up as part of governance. And I said, what's that? They said, it's LGBTQ. And I was like, because guess what? I'm not totally out at work. I don't need everyone to know that I'm gay. I don't even like saying it when I'm at work. I feel so uncomfortable. And I said, no, I'll lead the women's affinity group. That's the group I'm interested in. And they said, women's affinity, why would you want to lead that? They were kind of just like, no. They're like, no, we need you to step up in our headquarters. We need you to step up and be the person. And I know our CEO is like a fundamentalist Christian. So I'm thinking, oh, great, when David Marr is here, now he's going to know. And so I almost said no, but guess what? The other day, I prayed about it, and I thought, it's time for me to stand up there too. So I said, fine, I will lead the women's affinity group in Middlesex. I don't know when I go to that first meeting if I'm going to be the only gay person there. I don't know who's going to show up. But I have decided, and please pray for me, I have decided that if that's what they want me to lead, that's what I'm going to lead. And that's how my life has really changed. I stopped playing golf all the time and spending a lot of time doing that. And instead, I'm now, taking these seminary classes at the University of Dubuque with some of my other friends. And it's really fantastic. So my whole life has been totally turned upside down what I do with my time. And I couldn't be happier. And I don't want to move.
We're just about out of time, but we still have one lightning round question to go. And that is, if there's anything you could tell your younger self about integrating the church into your life, what advice would that be?
When God calls you to work for a church, you shouldn't run away, get your MBA, and go into business, because you know what? He'll just drag you right back in.
I wish I knew when I was 20 years old what I know now about who my neighbor is.
I feel like if I had stayed connected with a church family through my college years, that I might have not made quite as many of the bad moves that I did, bad choices. On the other hand, as my very loving, supportive middle daughter said, Mom, all the mistakes you made you the person you are now. And I love who you are now. So I don't know if having a church family back then would have made a difference or not. But I think you have to find your own way.
I'm gonna put a ditto on that one. It's like, you took my words. And I'll just add, like, when you find the right church and you can be yourself, you'll know you're in the right place. Like, because, like you said, this person is blossoming that you didn't even know was in there. and it's because of who you surrounded yourself with. So, you know, I think finding that place that feels like you're home, you are home.
So thank you all for coming. Thanks to Nan, Lori, John, and Marilyn for sharing such personal stories. I think we owe them all our prayers and a round of applause. Thanks to all of you for coming to Adult Ed this morning.
Thank you, Jenny, for asking us. Thank you, Michael.
You can see.
Yeah.